Hello everybody, welcome to week 7 of our course on the history of artificial intelligence. And this week we arrive at one of the most dramatic turning points in the history of AI. In earlier weeks we saw how much machine learning really began to start changing the field. And instead of only relying on hand-built rules, AI systems increasingly learned from data. But this week, that transformation really reaches a new level. With deep learning, larger data sets, new model architectures, and enormous growth in computational power, the AI systems, they started to produce results that many people actually started associating with creativity, expressiveness, and surprising insight. This was a revolutionary shift, and this is the heart of the focus this week. Now, historians and scientists often throw around the term revolutionary far too easily, I believe. But I do believe that this week certainly points to a revolution in the history of AI. And this revolution is something that we're living in the heart of right now. And this revolution happened only within the past 10 years. We're not just looking at better machines here. We're looking at the moment when AI began to feel different to the public and really to anybody who was using it. It no longer seemed limited to just doing narrow tasks in the background. AI began to generate these outputs that looked more human-like, and that raises a central question, the central question for this week, and that is this. Are the AI systems that we are working with now, are they truly creative, or do they only seem creative from a human point of view? Okay, let's begin with the core materials that we'll all be reading this week. We first look at the famous 2012 AlexNet paper. So 2012 really starts this revolutionary era that we're talking about this week. And this AlexNet paper was one of the landmark readings in all of modern AI history. AlexNet showed that these deep neural networks that were trained on very, very large data sets and powered by GPUs, they could achieve dramatic improvements in image recognition. And again, GPUs are graphical processing units. This was not just a small advance. It was the kind of breakthrough that made many researchers realize that the field had entered a new era. Next, we turn to AlphaGo. Now, AlphaGo, and again, Go is the ancient Asian game of strategy. AlphaGo, which was the AI version of the game, it did not simply win its match against the world champion human Lee Sedol. It actually made moves, AlphaGo made moves that expert human players described as unexpected, elegant, and even, in some cases, beautiful. So in a game associated with intuition and strategy and deep human judgment and insight, AI suddenly appeared to be capable of something that looked very much like human capability. Next, in the core readings this week, we move on to language, and we look at OpenAI's introduction of ChatGPT in November 2022. This reading helps explain why generative AI had such a powerful public impact when it was first released. ChatGPT didn't just answer questions, it interacted in ways with its users that felt conversational, fluid, responsive, and alive, frankly. For many people, this was the very first time that AI seemed not only useful, but expressive, and it began acting like a companion to many of us when, as we work on our intellectual projects. At the same time, though, this reading also reminds us that these systems can go wrong. They can be biased, they can hallucinate, and they can be overly confident. So even at this great moment of excitement, the limits were already clear. Finally, in the core learning path, we're going to be reading OpenAI's article called AI and Compute. So this reading is especially important because it reminds us that this modern AI revolution was not just about clever ideas. It was also about a massive increase in the scale of AI. Since 2012, the amount of computation used in the largest AI training runs increased at an extraordinary rate. This means that the breakthroughs of this era were not just intellectual. They were also based on the infrastructure, the AI infrastructure of these huge computing centers working on massive amounts of data. So behind the creativity that people were thinking they were seeing with the ChatGPT output, there were enormous systems of hardware, data, energy usage, and training that was involved as well. Okay, so when we finish the core learning materials, you will then venture off into one of three learning paths this week. Learning path A is entitled Inside ChatGPT, and that, as you might imagine, focuses on the conversational AI from OpenAI. This path shows why ChatGPT felt so revolutionary then and now, while also placing it in a much longer history of human-machine dialogue. And if you remember, in a previous week, everybody had a chance to experience what Eliza was like. So we can compare and contrast what Eliza felt like with what ChatGPT and other LLMs are today. So the history of human computer conversation reminds us that the dream of talking with machines goes back much further than just ChatGPT. And the ChatGPT 3 paper highlights the enormous leap made possible by these huge scaling language models. The Rob Miles video then explains alignment and reinforcement learning from human feedback, showing how these systems are shaped to sound more useful and cooperative. Then you're going to look at a NOVA documentary. This widens the lens of this topic by showing how this new generation of AI affects intellectual work, from science, creativity, and also everyday life. So this Learning Path A then helps you to see that ChatGPT feels new, not because humans only recently imagined talking to machines, but because the scale and transformers made this interaction far more convincing than it ever had been in the past. Next option for you is Learning Path B, which is entitled Deep Learning. This focuses more directly on the technical and also the cultural breakthroughs of this era that we're living in now. The article Attention is All You Need is one of the most important readings here because it introduces the transformer architecture that help make today's AI possible. The Matt Burgess article on AlphaGo shows how these technical breakthroughs quickly became major public events with lots of public attention associated with them. Next, we have an interview with a humanoid robot called a mecha, and this will help you think about AI as performance, presentation, and also public imagination. Next is this is the final talk for this Learning Path B, Fifi Lee's talk on visual recognition. It reminds us that breakthroughs in AI certainly depend on algorithms, but they're not only dependent on them. They're also dependent on these massive new data sets and the labor of classification that goes with them. So learning path B then is important because it shows that deep learning changed AI not by just improving accuracy, but by making the machine outputs feel increasingly expressive, lifelike, and impressive to human observers. Then the final learning path C, is entitled, Can Machines Create? Historians put ChatGPT on trial. And this takes a bit more of a critical approach. This path asks you to step back and question the language that people use to often describe AI. The Lemmy Lopes article is especially useful for historians and really for any observers about AI because it asks whether ChatGPT can actually do historical thinking. The answer, at least to these historians, is cautious at best. They think that ChatGPT may be helpful in brainstorming or drafting, but it does not think historically in a human sense. Bender and her co-authors in the title Stochastic Parrots. This essay pushes this critique further by arguing that these large language models produce fluent language, but they don't have true understanding of what they're saying. Thus, much like a parrot is parroting phrases of humans, but do the parrots really understand the language construction? Well, no, they're just stochastic parrots, repeating what they hear. The additional video this week and Pam Baker's piece also on responsible AI build on this critique by asking what happens when people actually start confusing polished outputs with genuine thought. So the Learning Path C then challenges us to ask whether what looks like creativity is actually creative, or whether or not it's actually a powerful illusion built from massive amounts of data and computational power that provide pattern recognition and probability. Our discussion question this week brings all these thoughts together, and the central question again is, are AIs truly creative, or do they just seem creative from a human point of view? I cannot emphasize how important this question is because it forces us to think carefully about both change and interpretation about what these AIs are doing. What actually changed in this period from 2012 to the present? Why are so many people using words like creative, intuitive, and intelligent to describe AI? Are these human-like words? Are they justified, or do they risk overstating what these AI systems like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, what they're actually doing? Now, to make these questions more concrete, I've also included in the hands-on AI section a Google Lab experience. These are many different. Funny, my Google just responded when I said the name Google. There's a smart assistant for me trying to be helpful. Now, the Google Lab experiences there are many of them, and they're changing all the time. You can select whichever one you would like for this assignment, but the ones I've suggested are called Blob Opera, Giga Manga, Fabricus, Guess the Line, and Mice in the Museum. Now, I think this is a very effective part of the week because it gives you more freedom to explore something new, and it gives you an up-to-date laboratory-like experience with something that Google is researching. So just briefly, Blob Opera invites you to think about AI and musical expression. Giga Manga raises questions about authorship and collaboration along with image generation. Fabricius shifts attention towards interpretation and cultural access. Guess the Line asks what it means for AI to recognize or interpret human drawing. And Mice in the Museum explores AI as a whimsical guide to art and meaning. So I think you'll have fun with whatever you select this week. So what I especially like here about this discussion is that the goal here is not true technical mastery of whatever laboratory experience you work with. The goal is reflection. You're simply being asked to try one of these tools and ask yourself what it feels like. Does the system seem creative? Does it feel like a tool? Does it feel like a collaborator? Or is it just simply a clever illusion? Is the machine generating something meaningful, or is the human user supplying most of the meaning? So, on the one hand, is it a stochastic parrot, or does the machine actually have some creative insight? And so all this comes together, then we'll have the discussion about it in the discussion board this week. And in your main post, you will respond to the central question about whether or not contemporary AI is genuinely creative. You reflect on your learning path that you chose this week, A, B, or C. You'll incorporate at least one reading or video in your discussion. You'll discuss one major example, such as AlexNet, AlphaGo, ChatGPT, transformers, or the scaling required to massively compute new AI data. And then finally, you'll bring in whatever Google Lab experience you tried, and talk about the promises and the limits of AI today. I think this will make for an especially strong discussion because it combines historical evidence, your own conceptual reflection, and also your actual experience. We're trying to get at not just what AI can do, but what human beings think they are seeing and interpreting what AI is doing. So the big takeaway from week 7 is this. This is the moment in time when AI stopped feeling like some distant technical specialty or dream of the future, and it started feeling like a powerful cultural force. Deep learning, transformers, massive data, and huge increases in computational power made these AI systems start to look human. These AI systems could classify, generate, converse, strategize, create images, create text that earlier systems could never even dream of. But this week also reminds us that impressive output is not the same thing as human understanding or human creativity. Fluency is not the same as consciousness. Novelty is not the same thing as creativity. And this sort of tension is exactly why this week matters and is important for us to think about moving forward. Modern AI is genuinely impressive. There's no question about that. It marks a major historical shift. I would suggest that it's revolutionary. But it also raises deep questions about interpretation, meaning, intelligence, and what authorship means. And that's what makes this moment so important and so worth studying historically. So I hope you enjoy the readings, the videos, and the Google Lab experience this week. It's one of the most exciting weeks of the course, I think, because it brings us face to face with the systems that have most recently shaped our public conversation about AI in our time. And as we move into the final week, this matters significantly because the future of AI not only is about what machines can do, it's about what humans believe those achievements actually mean. I will see you on the discussion boards.